Can America, can the West afford another war at this time?
I think the answer is absolutely. America can certainly afford to stand with Israel and to support Israel's military needs. And we also can and must support Ukraine in its struggle against Russia. And look, the American economy is doing extremely well.
It's doing so well. I know none of us can believe how great the economy is, how wonderful the economy. I've never seen it so. And we almost hope there are going to be more wars to pay for. Of course, that's Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, and of course we can afford these wars. Don't be stupid. Come on. You know how many wars we can afford? We don't even know how many wars we can afford. We might find out under Joe Biden how many wars we can afford. And when you say, can we afford it? Can we afford it? They just put it on the tab for the kids to pay later on. They don't care. It's $33 trillion in national debt. If we started paying it off right now at $1 a second, $60 a minute, it'd take us more than 1 million years to pay it off. More than 1 million years in seconds to pay off our national debt of $33 trillion. Well, once again, happy Monday to you, and welcome back. That's Janet. Who was that NBC fake news that was talking to her? CNBC. It's an NBC offshoot, CNBC. Hey, can we afford, they cover the business angle, you know. Can we afford these wars? Oh, sure. Oh, sure, she says. Yeah, we can afford this and more. You know, how many wars do you want? We can start another war. We should probably have, how many more? We should have several more wars because, you know, the Democrats, they love war because they're not liberals. They're the left. And murder is their thing. Jihad is their thing. Genocide is their thing. This is not yesterday's Democrat Party. Not your mother's Democrat Party. Certainly not my mother's Democrat Party. Amazing stuff. Well, once again, happy Monday, and we continue to be at 888-630-9625. So much crazy going on out there. The New York Post today. Video purports to show tied Hamas terrorists, quote, tortured with Baby Shark-like children's song. I've got that for you. I'm going to want to play that for you because it's pretty funny. It's funny torture, you know, of Hamas people because they don't like that music. Of course, they don't like any music, do they? They kill you for playing music. And that's why they play this children's song, and the lunatics with blindfolds and their hands tied, they're kind of bobbing along like they've never heard music before. I've got that for you. Pretty crazy stuff. All right, so we've got, also, you know, pay no attention to any of this. I saw that the FBI, and I got a little bit of your FBI director, Christopher Wray, terrible, awful, horrible person, a corrupt person, not trustworthy at all. His family doesn't trust him. If they do, they shouldn't because he's not a trustworthy person. But he, over the weekend, you know, we saw on Friday that they were very concerned that Muslims might be attacked in the United States. In fact, one Muslim boy over the weekend in Illinois, a 6-year-old boy, was murdered by a lunatic who looks like a homeless man because the lunatic who looks like a homeless man stabbed him, the 6-year-old boy, repeatedly and killed him. It's almost like one example of the thing that happened, you know, 1,300 times the other day in Israel. And it's a terrible thing, and the crazy man has been arrested, and that's an awful thing. And it's the anomaly, it's the exception that proves the rule that sort of thing does not happen here. But the Democrat Party, you know, that means the news media, they're going to make a big to-do out of this. Big to-do. Of course, they still don't pay a lot of attention to the fact that the Catholic Vote has been keeping track, catholicvote.org. More than 350 attacks on U.S. Catholic churches since May of 2020. Is that when the leak came out with the Supreme Court abortion decision? More than 350 attacks on U.S. Catholic churches. That's just Catholic churches, not other Christian churches. Just in the United States. Joe Biden and the Democrats, they're anti-God, anti-Catholic, anti-Jesus, anti-Christian. They're not on our side. So more than 350 Catholic churches alone been attacked, vandalized, and firebombed in many cases, and so on. But the news media, they don't cover that because that's Catholic churches, and the news media is Democrats, and they don't care. See, they're all Democrats. That's the thing about that. So we've got that going on. All kinds of mayhem. We got transgender Democrat big man says he's a woman. I want to join your sorority. And then I want to get to that because the Democrats in the Washington Post, but I repeat myself, very upset about all that. And, you got all this jihad stuff going on, and the Democrats rallying on college campuses and their professors encouraging this, and because they're anti-Semites and genocidal racists, and it's very common on the left to be that way, intellectually, if I may use that word in this context. But here's a fun headline. Harvard had 30 some odd groups sign on to a letter saying that the attacks on Israel were entirely Israel's fault because they're Jews and they live there, where Moses brought them when they're fleeing the pharaohs in Egypt. What was that, Michael? 3,500 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. And Michael is my Torah scholar here. He's my Torah scholar. He's actually some kind of Protestant person. He doesn't know anything about that. I'm just making fun of him. He's shaking his head. Now, so here's the headline. At Harvard, and they have all these rallies on college campuses that are pro-terrorist and genocidally anti-Semitic. And that's okay because they're Democrats. And the news media would never make an issue of the Democrat Party becoming genocidally anti-Semitic. There have been a number of conversations, and I've been involved in one or two of these conversations, but I've seen them on Al Gore's amazing internet, peace be upon him. I've seen a couple on cable television. That the most disturbing revelation out of all of this, and I met an interesting guy. I was actually at a restaurant and started talking to a guy next to me, and we just started chatting. It turns out he's a lawyer, and you can't tell anybody, but he's conservative. And he said that he said to him the most disturbing part of the most disturbing revelation is the rampant genocidal anti-Semitism on college campuses and in American cities. And it's this anti-Semitic flag is being carried by college graduate white kids overwhelmingly, who have been educated at places like Harvard. And this individual I was talking to actually went to law school at Harvard. And he said that he was appalled and horrified when he saw all these people signing on to the letter at Harvard saying that it was entirely Israel's fault. And he was kind of shaking his head at me and saying, rolling his eyes and saying, when did this happen? And I said, well, it's not just Harvard, of course. It's college campuses all over America, and it's been happening for years, and I've been drawing attention to it for quite some time. We talked about the UC Berkeley, the students, was that Young America's Foundation? I think it was, that set up a banquet table on the campus at UC Berkeley, and where, it's a hotbed of radical leftism. And a bunch of smart kids set up a table, and one day they showed up with the flag of Israel, and they wanted to hand out pamphlets on Israel, like Visit Israel, the Holy Land. And they were assaulted and spit at and threatened and ridiculed and attacked by the students walking by again and again and again and again and again. That was the norm. The very next day, they showed up at the same place with the same banquet table. This time, they brought a Palestinian flag and were handing out Palestinian propaganda, and they were greeted warmly by the students at UC Berkeley. And this was several years ago now, and that has become pretty much the norm on college campuses because the left is in control on college campuses, and the left is a murderous hate cult, death cult. They love terrorism, and they hate civilization. Now, this is a conflict between civilization and the opposite of civilization. Radical Islam is the opposite of civilization. We just had another demonstration of that last week. And the college campuses run by lefties and professors and academics and administrators, and the literature that they foist upon the young people with malleable young minds. They propagandize, they indoctrinate, they brainwash people to be anti-Israel and pro. See, it's the identity politics thing. There are only two categories of people: victims and victimizers. And the terrorists are the victims, and the people trying to preserve civilization are the victimizers. See, as like when we smashed the Nazis in World War II, we bombed Dresden, the city of Dresden, which was an arts center and a refugee center at the time, and we bombed them back to the Stone Age, and nobody batted an eye because we were crushing and smashing the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, which had been voted in by the people of Germany, just as Hamas was voted in by the people of the Gaza, right? And that's their elected government. And sometimes, the Japanese paid the price. They didn't elect their government. They had an emperor. But innocent people are punished in these tragic situations because the bad guys are in charge and they start wars. And that leads to bad things. But the left here in the United States, that includes the news media, academia, your average run-of-the-mill Democrat walking up the sidewalk, they're all anti-Israel, which is kind of amazing. Even Jewish Democrats find themselves being anti-Israel, and that's the Democrat Party's propaganda. Right? Now, here's a great headline. Harvard student leaves lecture on microaggressions to attend Kill the Jews rally. What? I'm sorry? Did what? They left the lecture on microaggressions to attend a Kill the Jews rally? Oh, wait, that's the Babylon Bee. Okay, never mind. That's but here's the thing about the Babylon Bee. That could perfectly well be an actual headline of an actual moment on the campus of Harvard, because they're brainwashing and indoctrinating the little dimwits. Just don't hire anybody. If you've got a company or a law firm, just don't hire anybody from any of the Ivy League schools and from California. I mean, honestly, I can't imagine trying to hire people out there in the real world right now with lunatics that are being pushed out into the workplace from our college campuses, which are hotbeds of mental illness. And I think that's not unfair, mental illness. But I do love Harvard student leaves lecture on microaggressions to attend Kill the Jews rally, because they've had Kill the Jews rallies, and they had this Kill the Jews document that everybody signed on to. And the wonderful people at Accuracy in Media, AIM, Accuracy in Media, they got one of those trucks, a driving billboard truck with an electronic billboard, I think on 3 sides, electronic billboards, and they're driving around Cambridge, Mass, with the names and the photographs of the people that signed on to the genocidal anti-Semite letter out of Harvard University. But, I'm a city college guy. And when I moved to Washington, D.C. and started working in the news media, there are Ivy League people all over the place. And I was never too impressed with, it's like, oh, you got into Harvard. That's got to be tough. Turns out, not really. It's kind of a trick. But then they graduate from Harvard, and I've just, there are people that went to Harvard and Yale that are smart. But don't be impressed with someone just because they went to Harvard or Yale. And you don't think they're smarter than you, know more than you, going to do a better job than you, anything like that, because that is, in my experience, is not the case. And as a rule, rare exception, to find somebody that went to the University of Illinois might be the smartest person in the room. But just don't buy into that stuff. And don't hire them, for God's sake. I don't know, hiring these days has got to be a nightmare. All the usual things, plus all the crazy stuff the Democrats have piled on top. lately. Left the microaggressions rally to attend the Kill the Jews rally. That's Harvard, and that's, that is the most disturbing revelation out of all of this, is how widespread and mainstream the Democrat Party has made genocidal anti-Semitism. They have mainstreamed it. And when you call them on it, you're the villain of the story. President Lunchbucket Joe Biden's sinister plan to inflict the digital dollar on all of us is already underway, and it's very important to understand the potential consequences here, because they tell us, oh, this is going to be great. It's not in your best interest. It's not in my best interest. And time is very important right now if you want to protect your savings and your retirement. You can help protect your savings and your retirement from the risks of Joe Biden's digital dollar scheme by diversifying with IRAs in gold and silver, precious metals. You get started by calling the experts at American Alternative Assets. Call them at 888-4GOLD20, 888-446-5320. They'll give you all the guidance you need on safeguarding your retirement savings. Say no to Joe Biden's digital dollar. Call 888-4GOLD20. Individual results may vary. There is no guarantee that past performance of gold and silver will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah. All right, and I've got Lunchbucket Joe coming up, too. He was on 60 Minutes last night being fluffed by the professionals. That's coming up. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. All right, Michael, let's take a telephone call. Let's go to Mark, calling from Oatlands, Virginia. Mark, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Hey, Mark.
You were talking about Moses giving this land. It is not Exodus. This is Genesis. Mm-hmm. Abram, later Abraham, was given this land, hence the name Abraham Accords. And then his 12 children became the 12 tribes, and his bastard son became the father of all the Arabs. But this goes back to Abraham.
And the left here in the United States says that Israel is a colonial power because they descended in 1948, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the Alayas began before that, but that's when the nation was stood up.
Yeah, the Democrats, the modern day Israel. Honestly, Mark, thank you for that. That's right. Abraham predating Moses. That's how long the Jews have been there. Not exactly colonialism. Okay. Yes, Abraham. I should be more of an Old Testament scholar than I am, and for that I apologize. Now let's go back to the telephones for a moment. Then I want to get to Joe Biden from 60 Minutes last night, where CBS News did the usual job, and I'll just leave it at that because we have FCC regulations. Let's go to Donna, calling from Knoxville, Tennessee. Donna, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. I've been listening to you for a long time. Originally, I think you were on the air down here on maybe WIVK, and one day you were gone, and I searched and found you on online, so I listened to you online, WMAL.
Well, thank you very much. That's I'm very happy to hear that. Thanks. And that
that
poor silly radio station that had me and then they dropped me. What's the matter with them, Donna?
Well, I think it might have been cheaper to use their own local people. The only thing I could think of. Because I live in a county that 71% voted Republican. So
wow,
in
that's
Blount
good.
County. I actually live south of Knoxville in Maryville.
Okay.
But nobody knows where that is. It's in the foothills of the Smokies.
Wonderful.
Anyway, So today in the Wall Street Journal, which I get every day by mail, the headline of this story is "Don't hire my anti-Semitic law students" from a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, named Stephen Solomon. It's worth your while to read it because it's everything that you preach against yourself, and it's just, I had to laugh out loud actually at some of it because these people are so stupid. The students, I mean, not the law professor.
Well, we've been indoctrinating and brainwashing young people. The left in the United States has been brainwashing and indoctrinating young people, and I fear for the future of civilization itself. You know, there's capitalism, there's the great American experiment, and then there's civilization itself, because the left is anti-civilization.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I blame it on the end of the Vietnam War when all those crazy people became professors, and they've been preaching that ever since, you know. I mean, look what they did to California. We were stationed there. My husband's retired Air Force, and we lived in California for a while, but not in the crazy part. And they ruined it. I mean, at the time, you could go to school, to community college for free, and taxes were low, and, you know, anyway. But let me just say, quote you two quick things. I haven't heard anyone quote these, quote Golda Meir. And one thing that I always remembered that she said was, "There will be peace in the Middle East only when Arabs love their children more than they hate Israel."
That is a good one. Golda Meir also said, just off the top of my head, "We can forgive you for killing our children. We will never forgive you for making our children kill your children."
Yes, that was going to be my other quote.
I'm sorry.
How can people forget? You know, somebody should be saying that every single day. And in fact, in the Wall Street Journal today, the picture, the photographs on the front, the picture of Israel burying a Jewish man who was killed, and then the second picture right below it is a Palestinian woman burying a child. So there's Golda Meir right there.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, stop the killing, stop the massacre, stop the genocide, stop the bloodshed, stop the death cult that has been plaguing civilization for centuries. And it is a tragic situation when civilization is forced, as we were with the rise of Adolf Hitler and his Socialist Workers' Party, with Japan, Imperial Japan, and the madness, and with the Soviet Union. It's tragic that civilization, you know, the good guys have to show up. Otherwise, the bad guys will win, and we will live on one great big rock of slavery everywhere you go, and there would be no escaping it if the left had their way, or if the Islamists had their way.
Well, I'm just hoping to heck that we get our act together in the House of Representatives. My representative, which I've always voted for and loved, he has a great story behind him, but he's Tim Burchett, and he's one of those gang of eight. You know, I'm proud of the fact that they got rid of McCarthy.
Well, and that brawl, I want to update on that today, too. Not that there's a lot to update on that today, but you know, look, the House of Representatives, you know, if a whole Washington government went away for a month, well, it'd be a great experiment. I love a good government shutdown, as you probably know, Donna. Living in Washington, D.C., I think really a government shutdown is great. And if we have all these non-essential personnel all year long, maybe we should take a look at that, because I promise you, GM, and for that matter, the United Auto Workers, they don't have non-essential employees show up to work in large numbers every day, because that would be insane, of course.
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's like King Canute trying to hold back the tide. You know, it just seems to be. I'm just glad we retired in Tennessee, which is God's country as far as I'm concerned. Bob can go fly fishing, and they have a great high school program down here, believe it or not, in East Tennessee. Anyway,
I believe it. I have friends. I have friends, retired military friends and intelligence that have moved to East Tennessee, and I'm gonna stop there because they're looking to get away from the madness too, and
well. Yeah, we have there's a big military presence here. Of course, we have McGee Tyson Air Force Base, and we got Smith and Wesson coming in.
That is great. That is wonderful. Donna, you are wonderful too. I'm very happy you called in. Thank you.
Well, thanks. But that was so apropos when I was sitting here reading. I had just read the journal, and I saw that headline. I was reading it out loud to my husband, and here you are talking about anti-Semitic law students, not hiring them, and that's what he's advising.
Isn't that great?
Who he says be sure and ask for their name and how many organizations they belong to, and if they mention one of those anti-Israeli organizations, don't hire them.
Yeah, they'll never mention those organizations again, which is why their names should be published, and they are being published, I believe, by Accuracy in Media. AIM
driving around with the truck with the names on it.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? That's just the greatest. And they're collecting, and now the news media is screaming, "Oh no, they're being doxxed! They're being doxxed!" No, they're not publishing their phone numbers or their home addresses. These people publicly came out against Israel and in favor of terrorism and radical Islamic jihadi groups like Hamas, and they're on the record doing it, but they're too stupid to know that they're on the record when they do these things. Which is how they got into Ivy League schools.
Well, it's appalling.
It is.
It's appalling.
Donna, you're wonderful, and thank you for being you. And I'm saluting your husband, Bob. Right, Bob?
Yay! Yeah, he had a great 28 years in the Air Force, and then we moved here, and he retired, and he went to work for Knox County Sessions Court judges
that is great.
For another almost 30 years. So
sound like Americans.
Still going strong.
Sound like Americans to me. Thank you, Donna. Thanks.
Absolutely.
God bless. And Bob, too, and I do love the Wall Street Journal piece. "Don't hire my anti-Semitic law students" is the headline in the Wall Street Journal, as Donna was pointing out. Would your clients want an attorney who condones hatred and monstrous crimes? ? By Stephen Davidoff Solomon, who I suspect is Jewish himself. I teach corporate law at the University of California, Berkeley, and I'm an advisor to the Jewish Law Students Association. My students are largely engaged and well prepared. I regularly recommend them to legal employers. But if you don't want to hire people who advocate hate and practice discrimination, don't hire some of my students. Anti-Semitic conduct is nothing new on university campuses, including here at Berkeley. Last year, Berkeley's Law Students for Justice in Palestine asked other student groups to adopt a bylaw that bans supporters of Israel from speaking at events because they're fascists, they're anti-free speech, anti-Bill of Rights. Fundamentally, their values are not Western values. They are authoritarian values. This is me interjecting, of course. He said it excluded their bylaw that they were demanding not let any pro-Israel people speak on campus because Sig Heil meine Schatzi. It excluded any speaker who, quote, expressed and continued to hold views or host, sponsor, promote events in support of Zionism. That is to say, the very existence of the state of Israel. The apartheid state of Israel, they called it, and the occupation of Palestine, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the world around them and of history. 9 student groups adopted the bylaw. They have student groups, lots of them, and 9 student groups adopted the bylaw. Signers included Middle Eastern and North African Law Students Association, the Queer Caucus, no sense of irony, and the Women of Berkeley Law. Now, think about that for a moment. The Queer Caucus, Israel is the only nation in the Middle East that allows queer caucuses or caucus, and in every other country surrounding Israel, you're likely to be hanged or killed or lynched or maybe I repeat myself, thrown in jail for being gay, and there are no public displays of any of that except in Israel. And the Queer Caucus comes out against Israel in favor of the people that would hang them from cranes and chant in large crowds, Allahu Akbar. That's a good idea. And of course, the women of Berkeley Law. Well, maybe someday you'll be able to drive a car. Good luck to you. This is how ignorant these people are, and they go to Berkeley, UC Berkeley. It's supposed to be a world-class university, but I think we all know better. All right, let's see. Let's get to some. And he said honestly, the names should be collected. It's not doxing. This is public record. And if you're part of an anti-Semitic hate group, where's the Southern Poverty Law Center, and where's the FBI? We live in very corrupt times. Speaking of corrupt times and ignorant people, I've got Joe Biden, who did an interview with Scott Pelley on on CBS. What's the difference? But I don't really have time to get to that right now. Now, let's go to soundbite number 11. I'll get to Joe Biden in a little bit. Jake Sullivan, who is the cadaverous, liver-lipped, wan and unathletic Democrat Party apparatchik who is currently, amazingly, the national security advisor to the President of the United States, which is embarrassing. And Jake Sullivan, a week ago, it was days before the jihadi attack on Israel. And because he's got his finger on the pulse, and because our intelligence community is too busy lying to the American people and deceiving the American people about stories in the New York Post having to do with the Biden family laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, our intelligence community lies to us. They run information operations against us. They interfere in our presidential elections. But apparently they don't inform the National Security Advisor as to what's really going on in the world. Here is little Jake Sullivan just days before the attack on Israel.
The Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades. Now, challenges remain. Iran's nuclear weapons program, the tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. But the amount of time that I have to spend on crisis and conflict in the Middle East today compared to any of my predecessors going back to 9/11 is significantly reduced.
Significantly reduced. Wow, you've really got your finger on the pulse. Well, then the dim-witted National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, was on left-wing TV, NBC, with Kristen Welker yesterday on Sunday, who actually asked him a relevant question, shockingly.
Jake, why was your assessment there so far off the mark?
Well, first, Kristen, I made those comments in the context of developments in the wider Middle East region over the last few years after 2 decades that involved a civil war in Yemen and a massive humanitarian catastrophe, a civil war in Syria and a massive refugee crisis, an invasion and insurgency in Iraq, a NATO military operation
and that's the peaceful.
In Libya, Iranian-backed attacks
Never
on
been
both
so
Saudi
calm.
and the UAE. As well as many other steps, including
still going
the rise
on and on
of a terrorist
about all the
that
murder.
actually occupied a huge amount of territory.
Yeah.
The sentence before what you just played, I said, in fact, that this was for now and that it could all change.
As long as you say for now, and it's true, it could all change. He is a wise man. It could all change. He knows it could all change. See, he's been paying attention. The most senior leadership in the United States government, not a bright bunch, not a serious bunch. And you know who's acutely aware of this, even if Kristen Welker is not? The Ayatollah, Vlad the Impaler Putin, Xi Jinping, Ricochet Rabbit. They're all acutely aware of the fact that Jake Sullivan is our national security advisor, and Xi Jinping would push him down a flight of stairs. Speaking of Joe, saw Joe Biden stumble on the stairs again on Friday. See that? He is definitely ready for a single-level living, isn't he? He's got to find a retirement community with single-level living because stairs are not for him. Yeah, the anti-Semites are really on a tear. Whose is the nice lady that called in and said, you know, we really got to stop using anti-Semite. That's much too ginger. Jew haters is probably more appropriate for the people that we're talking about here. There is a newspaper in the United Kingdom known as The Guardian. The Guardian, and they're guarding things. Guardian sacks, that's British for fires. Guardian sacks its own cartoonist, Steve Bell, who had worked at the paper for over 40 years over his anti-Semitic, that is Jew-hating, Benjamin Netanyahu cartoon. Critics have claimed that the work depicts the anti-Semitic pound of flesh trope, the old anti-Semitic tropes of which there are many. And this is a depiction of Benjamin Netanyahu that is unflattering and exaggerated features and makes him look like the villain of the story because, you know, the left is completely insane. But in any case, they fired their cartoonist, Steve Bell. 40 years at the paper. He does one anti-Semite political cartoon, and boom, he's gone. The Washington Post doesn't do that. The New York Times doesn't do that because they're different. They're differently abled in so many ways. Gosh, aren't they? But that is appropriate, I think. And it's weird that this thing keeps reemerging generation after generation. Anti-Semitism is something I've never been able to figure out. I was introduced to the concept as a young child, and I was very aware of all of the goings-on of World War II. My father had been a Navy fighter pilot in World War II, which many of you doubtless know. And growing up, World War II was kind of a part of our diet. My older brothers and myself, and my mother, a child of World War II, who married a World War II veteran. And I was raised on this. And when I was a child, the Nazis marched in Skokie on the North Shore of Chicago. We were living on the North Shore of Chicago. And it just goes on and on, the madness. And now, where is it coming from? Well, college campuses, the Democrat Party, and the left.